We're happy to have with us Dr. Yvette Meir-Cook from Boise State University's College of Education. Dr. Meir-Cook's presentation is titled STEM Drives Progress: Practical Approaches on Integrating STEM to Address IEP Goals.
Welcome to this presentation, STEM Drives Progress: Practical Approaches on Integrating STEM to Address IEP Goals. My name is Yvette Meir-Cook, and I'm thrilled to be part of STEMIEFest 2020. During today's presentation, I'm going to highlight my work in inclusive early childhood STEM education. I hope you come away with an understanding of STEM as it relates to child development and learning, an appreciation for the importance of integrating STEM for all children, but especially our children with disabilities, an insight into how most, if not all of your child's IEP goals can be addressed through participation and engagement in STEM investigations, and practical strategies to implement STEM in the classroom that include planning lessons, introducing STEM topics, and partnering with families so that your child's IEP goals can be addressed across environments. So why STEM, and why do young children and young children with disabilities need to engage in STEM investigations? To answer this question, we need to define and understand what is STEM in early childhood. STEM is an approach to learning that places children's curiosities and inquiries at the center of their learning. Investigations either start with a question to answer, a problem to solve, or a phenomenon to explore. And children use questions, observations, exploration to learn about the world around them. This is what young children do. We define technology as any tool that helps a child explore. Take, for instance, this stick. This is considered technology, a tool that this child's using to dig in the mud. We also think about math in terms of not just numbers and counting, but we help children explore those patterns that exist in nature. And patterns in music. After all, a song is just a simple algorithm. I'm going to be showing you this video clip to illustrate this point. While you watch this teacher set up this investigation based on her infant's interest in sounds, I want you to think about all the different developmental domains that this teacher is promoting.
The teacher had started an investigation into sound, having students pat drums, different types of drums, and using everyday items to make different sounds on the drums. Today, she added a new sound, a wind chime. See how these infants observe, explore, and test out this new sound.
Is it moving? You're making it move. You're making it move with your fingers. Is that a sound? Oh, where'd the sound go? Where did the sound go? Oh no. What happened to the sound? Changed? Oh, you figured it out.
As you can see, this young child solved the problem of making the wind chime work after he got it all tangled up. And young children explore their environment and explore their curiosities every day. Except for all young children with disabilities, they often don't have the access or the opportunity to engage in STEM investigations. Early childhood special education does focus on explicit instruction and adult-directed tasks. However, with this next video clip that I'm going to show you, If you infuse the instructional supports and the evidence-based practices within STEM investigations, young children can not only make progress on their IEP goals, they can meet them. So in our inclusive preschool classroom, we implemented the engineering design process within the classroom, and we used We Engineer to get us started. We Engineer is the preschool part of the Engineering as Elementary curriculum published by the Museum of Science in Boston. So we had one child who she would not really enter play with anyone. She preferred to play by herself in our inclusive classroom. And so we were working on the goal of her entering group play and initiating verbal exchanges with adults and peers. We then also noticed that she would never join us during center time. She tended to stay at the snack table and eat very slowly and pick at her food rather than participate in those activities. So this was another one of our goals for her. So as you watch this video, I want you to take note of the goals that we had for her, as well as notice her engagement and participation and joy. We are doing the raft challenge, which is part of We Engineer.
What happened? What happened to it? It went down. That's right, you were telling me it went down. I wonder what would happen if you turned it over. It still sinks. Oh. What happened? I can't really come back up. Tatum, did you see that? Did you see what happened with the phone? Yay! You want to show Tatum? Okay, did you see that? Wow! The felt comes back up. The pine cookie roll. Oh my goodness! Look at Hattie's. Dionysus, how is Hattie's different? Uh-oh, what happened? Hattie! It sunk! I'm crushed! Okay, the color tape, trying it again. Dionysus, she's trying it again. That's what you're going to do. Hattie! Did it work? Minus a pilot ship. Oh my goodness! Like a sail. Hattie, it floats now.
So as you can see, she definitely initiated with peers, she definitely initiated with adults, and she couldn't be more engaged as she persisted and improved on her raft to make it float. So this is the power of STEM, and it really is a vehicle to drive progress on IEP goals. So how do you get started? How do we actually get this into our classrooms? So the key word is intentionality, planning with intention. The environment, materials, and your data collection or your monitoring of those IEP goals. But to set you up for success in order to be able to do all this planning is, number one, assemble a team. Draw on your paraprofessionals, draw on your librarian to help you get fiction and nonfiction books on certain topics, and then engage your parents. Parents are more than willing to partner with you on doing things that really challenge and enrich their child's educational experiences. 2, choose an investigation that's based on children's interests. So the teacher who, with the infants, really noticed that they were very into sounds. Use existing resources as well. So we used WeEngineer. STEMI is also coming out with some resources for early childhood educators. So look for those evidence-based resources as well. And then traditional classroom themes. So this picture that I show is, children exploring outside, and they found a worm that had no legs, and then another bug, a little beetle that did have legs, and they were talking about that. So we created a theme and an investigation all around bugs, and we were comparing different types of bugs, and that lasted for quite several weeks. The third strategy for success is to integrate this into existing routines. Introduce topics during story time with those fiction and nonfiction books. Discuss and ask questions, open-ended questions during your circle or class meeting, and then really use your center times to have the exploration and into different topics happen. In terms of intentionally planning the environment, you want to really have enough physical space where children could lay on the floor, they can walk around. As you can see, we had a child who really preferred to draw or journal while laying on his tummy on the floor, having different stations. So we had a word wall in our circle time area where if any of us heard a child using a word, or if a child had a question, or if we used a juicy word like compare or experiment, we would put it up on the word wall, and then we would describe it. The third part about setting up the environment is really embedding all of those supports that your children need in order to access the curriculum you're using. So any evidence-based practices with respect to peer modeling, with respect to communication, PECs, if your child needs to use an iPad to communicate, or icons, having those already part of your STEM investigation time. And then the last one is just time. It takes some children a little bit longer to warm up to an activity or to start their investigation. I'm doing distance learning right now, and during our STEM time last week, I had a couple of children dive in and start, building right away. But then I had a child who I could see going in and out of his parents' room, and he didn't start right away. And I thought, oh, he's not going to participate today. But he did end up, after about 5 to 10 minutes, coming in and actually building with us. And he had taken different materials from other parts of the house to make his creation. And so that brings us to materials. Everyday items, I feel, work the best. Recyclables, we ask parents to collect them during this distance learning time, but we were having parents bring in different recyclables. We have children in their outdoor walks come and gather leaves or sticks or anything that they could use in their investigations. You saw the child who was trying to see if a pine cone floated. The other thing that we use quite a bit is books, fiction and nonfiction, and I can't emphasize enough that having both is really important to set the scene for a particular topic. Right now, I'm having parents use books as a preview to our STEM time. I find that students get really excited and start to get exposed to some of the vocabulary that we're using with respect to our STEM investigation when they have that time to preview books. I'm using read-alouds right now with my students' families because some of our libraries they're not accessible in terms of the hours are very limited right now. Access to real tools. With supervision, of course, we're able to have hot glue tools for children to use with supervision, as well as we had a teacher bring in her sewing machine, and children really got excited about seeing the real tool, using it, and they really respected the expectations and rules around that. So again, a wonderful thing in terms of tying that to a self-regulation goal on a child's IEP of just, it really helps to promote that. And then journals for home. We had journals for students in the classroom, but also having them have that journal, a separate journal for home. We had one child who wanted to write everything that they were going to test out with the sink or float the next day. And they wanted to write all the words. And so this is a great example of, if you have a writing goal for a child, how that the parents could be working on that and tying that to something that's happening in the classroom. And lastly, really taking the time and planning on, when am I going to observe this STEM time so that I can complete my progress monitoring in their IEP goals. And I would really recommend using existing systems and your personnel. So maybe having the paraprofessionals set up the STEM investigation while you you progress monitor the different goals that you're looking at, inviting maybe the speech therapist and the occupational therapist to do their progress monitoring during STEM time is also a recommendation. And then I wanted to highlight this last goal that ties into this theme of how STEM drives IEP progress. So here's a child who was working on building vocabulary. So building new vocabulary words was one of his goals. And he uses the word energy in this video clip that I'm going to show you. And had we not been using STEM as the context for our centers, I'm not sure if we would have ever heard him use this word. And he was describing and asking if energy was what was making the hot glue tool work.
What? Is there energy in there?
So again, this is a pretty quick clip, but it shows you that he's using the word energy, and he's thinking about what is making that glue melt. And it's such a wonderful example of the power of STEM in early childhood. So thank you so much for attending this presentation. I look forward to the Q&A as well, and I do have additional resources and references and image references for you as well. But yes, I look forward to the Q&A, and thank you so much for your engagement and your participation.